What up, everybody? Welcome back to another Comically Boston, your official after shows for all things Marvel, Star Wars, and any other shows that I love to watch, like a House of the Dragon or something like that. Right now, I've currently been watching X-Men 97, just came out with its new episode, episode 3, Fire Made Flesh, of their season, and that episode and that whole X-Men 97 series has been really fun, and we're going to talk mostly today about that. But just briefly, I want to talk about, I think it was episode 9 of the final season of Bad Batch was yesterday, and a character of the name Asajj Ventress returned, and she was like a badass Sith character way back in the day, like a Count Dooku's like apprentice type deal, and she was bald and double wielded red lightsabers. But in this one, she's got hair and she's wielding a yellow lightsaber. So like shit like this is why I love the Star Wars universe, because like there's no Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader in this the whole series of Bad Batch, but yet it connects to the Star Wars world. And you get badass characters like this, and I love seeing Asajj Ventress back and her interacting with Omega and the rest of the Bad Batch crew is just pretty awesome. But I'm also watching Shogun right now. I haven't watched this week's episode yet, and Tokyo Vice, which has been a great second season of that show. I hope it gets greenlit for a third, but I don't know if it will, because I don't know if that many people are actually watching it. Comment below, have you watched any of the shows that I just talked about? But let's get into the real focus of today's show. X-Men 97, Episode 3, Fire Made Flesh, The Return of Mr. Sinister. Ooh, he's such a creepy weirdo, but like also like one of those villains you see and you're like, ooh, like no mistaking, that's the villain. Alright, I'm in. Let's see the good guys kick their ass. But from the end of Episode 2, we saw 2 Jean Greys, and there was a Jean Grey that just had Scott's baby, and then there was a Jean Grey that stumbled in the door, and she was all confused, and we didn't know what was happening. But we find out this episode what's the deal with that. But we see the 2 Jeans here. The one laying in this bed, Beast is giving science reports that she is actually the real Jean Grey, and that this Jean that just had the baby Nathan, is Clone Jean, and Clone Jean steps back like defensive, like, I am one of the first X-Men, there's no friggin' way, Scott, trust me. And Scott's like wants to trust her and wants to trust that this person that he loves is Jean, but he also knows that Beast science is like science, and he's not just going to say something for no reason, and he's definitely not just going to give the first results. He's definitely double checked, triple checked, and he was right, because that Jean is the real Jean, and this Jean that Scott had a baby with is all a part of Mr. Sinister's plan. Woo! Spoilers. If you don't want to fucking hear the spoilers for this episode, you gotta disappear, come on back. But if you want to know what's going on in this episode 3, that's why you're here today. Because Mr. Sinister comes in, and this clone Jean is actually Madeline Pryor. They never really explain like where her name comes, but we know from the comic books that Madeline Pryor is a clone of Jean Grey. I think still created by Mr. Sinister in the comics, but in this show here, a clone created by Mr. Sinister. Now the biggest question I got is, when did Mr. Sinister plug in this clone, right? So how long has Jean been asleep or whatever, and how long has Madeline Pryor been in Jean's place, living Jean's life? Like, how long into the X-Men 97 show was she thinking she's Jean? You know what I mean? Like, that's just so wild. It's so crazy. But Mr. Sinister is in the X Mansion and kind of starts playing some creepy horror almost-esque vibes. And it starts with like poor Morph looking at the Danger Room training sheet, and he's like, ooh, Rogue and Magneto, 8 to 10, ooh, Rogue and Magneto, 10 to 12, ooh, and like it looks like they had booked out like a 14-hour long, like all day today, all day tomorrow training sessions, and Morph's like, wow, she's really working up her new stamina with the boss, and just the way he says it, it's like got these horny innuendos, like, goddamn, we're supposed to be thinking that Magneto and Rogue are fucking this whole time, and poor Gambit here's like all sad about it. And it's just funny. But then creepy parts like this demon starts crawling out of the TV, and Jubilee throws something at its head and splits it in half, and they show it almost, and they show like little bits of blood and shit. I was like, what the hell is this demonic turn that this thing just took? And it was doing it on purpose, because this demonic turn is heading to Mr. Sinister, and he's a creepy demonic guy. But we see like a creepy clown crazy version of Charles Xavier here. This face is like so messed up. Reminds me of that, like those like Japanese crazy creepy animated cartoons. Ugh, just gives me the heebie-jeebies. But I love morphs. Like Mr. Sinister starts showing them their like fantasies, or their like things that will fuck with their mind. And Morph here kind of loves Wolverine, clearly, because Wolverine's in the shower, and he's like, "Hey, Wolvie, you need a hand with the hard to reach places. You need a scratch on the back," and pulls out the claws, and then poor Morph sees Mr. Sinister come out of the mist of the shower, and he's like, "Oh God," you know, and it's just like creepy stuff. But earlier in the episode, we see Rogue. Well, this is a very cute picture. They're like playing basketball in the court, and a shirtless Gambit, all ripped, is holding Rogue, and Rogue goes to kiss him, but has to put her hand over his mouth first, and then kisses the back of her hand. And it's just like, just to show why Rogue really is probably with Magneto, because she can touch him, you know, and can be touched. Instead, she's got to like avoid being touched by poor Gambit here, and Gambit really loves her. So like, the love triangle between those three, I'm actually more invested in than the love triangle between Cyclops, Jean, and Wolverine. That one's just the tale as old as time. But poor Gambit starts to see what Mr. Sinister is planning for him, and like it's all like cast by like this green creepy light, and Gambit creeps in the door and sees this like super exaggerated picture of Rogue and Magneto, and they're like skins melting into each other, right? So what would a girl that can't touch really want is just like them to just be melted together, touching, just can't not touch, right? So, and poor Gambit's like, this is not what Gambit should be seeing. Gambit's never gonna unsee that. And I love his little Louisiana accent. I think I said in the last episodes, in the first two episodes, that like Cyclops, Storm, those were like my favorite characters. This episode, I almost kind of just love Morph like so much. The more and more I think about it, I'm like, Morph's a badass. Like I just love Morph as a character, Morph as a dude, what he can do, like what his power is. Like they're getting away with so many cameos where like they don't have to explain, oh God, Deadpool's here, or oh God, this character's here. They just explain, oh, it's Morph. Morph morphed into that character, now that character's here, right? So you can get away with any cameo you want and just justify it with, oh, that's what Morph turned into, instead of, you know, oh, that character was supposed to be here, but now he's here, right? Like, he can just be anyone he wants, which is just awesome. Like, in Morph being that sassy, extra pregnant Jean Grey last episode was super funny. Him messing with Wolverine. And I'm really starting to see the bond and relationship between Wolverine and Morph, and really loving that. The funniest part of this episode to me was Beast is coming up the elevator, and this creepy tongue face is like trying to morph itself into the elevator, and Beast just kind of looks at it and goes, oh, I'm sorry, I believe one of us got off on the wrong floor. Like, and he's just like not scared at all. He's just kind of like just a scientist, and he's just like, you're not gonna scare me. So Mr. Sinister probably thought the same thing. You're not gonna scare him, so what can I do? Just slow him down with this big fat face with a big tongue in the elevator doorway? I guess. But they drop into hell, and this like the floor just kind of erases, and they just free fall into hell. But I loved the little freeze frame on their faces here, especially Wolverine's. Like, he just has these two white eyes, like, ah! And friggin' they just fall in. But as they're, like, free falling, we see Sunspot, Jubilee, Gambit, Bishop, and, of course, then Bishop later, as they're down there fighting, sees Beast about to fall into the pit, and he just hums, fastball style, hums Wolverine. And I just, like, out of nowhere, Wolverine's, yeah, and just, like, huh? And just gets grabbed and yeeted. And he's just like, ah! Like, catches Beast and just goes to Beast. You smell like burned hair. And I'm like, some of the little one-liners in this are just the things I live for, you know what I mean? But then we get Clone Jean, and she shows up as the Goblin Queen, holding baby Nathan in a little portal behind her, but she is smoking hot. And everyone was like, oh, her outfit's so inappropriate. And then, of course, if you know her from the comic books, her comic book outfit is much more racy, much more sexualized. But the Goblin Queen here takes a stab at poor Magneto, breaks all the glass, and then starts throwing shards at him. He starts getting cut up, and then he's on the ground, just, you know, showing a little side nip, little nip action, little cut action. Magneto's on the ground all messed up. He's okay, though. He'll be back. But then the Goblin Queen kind of turns and is working with Cyclops and trying to get back her baby, because I think she realizes that maybe she's not Jean Grey, but that baby was definitely still hers. You know, the baby was born inside of her, not Jean Grey. So technically, baby Nathan is Madeline Pryor's baby, but still Scott Summers' father. I have no idea how that works. Cloning, it's a messy place. But I thought it was super touching. The old Jean, or the real Jean, is back at the mansion, and she can't really, like, figure out what's going on, and she doesn't really have all the memories. And Wolverine goes, Jeannie, look into my mind, look at all our memories, look what you mean to me. And she like starts to cry, and she's like holding his face, that's what you mean to me, that's what I mean to you. And he's like, even more. And like you think Wolverine and Jean is about to get his moment, and he's like, oh, okay, maybe gonna get a smooch, and then all of a sudden she, you know, uses her brain powers and goes, Scott, and just immediately jumps back to Scott and pull Wolverine, and will never get the girl. But I love, like, she's like, oh, I have to go and help him, and Beast is like, no way, your body won't handle it. And instead of going, bitch, please, she goes, Beast, please, my body won't be an issue. And she just uses her mind and just causes, like, some straight up fucking, shows you who's the Omega level threat in this bitch, because Jean Grey is powerful as fuck, but goes into like this astral projection form. I think that's what that is, at least. Shows like the Phoenix, you know, and like you see Scott here like reaching out to the Phoenix, and you know, the blast of light as he's like, Jean, is that really you? But we see poor baby Nathan here is stuck with Mr. Sinister, and Mr. Sinister's just putting him into a green vat of whatever, goop, acid, something, and whatever it is, it's not good for poor baby Nathan. And Scott and Jean back at the house reunite, but of course you see them like going to kiss, and poor Wolverine's in the background just like depression. So that vat that Mr. Sinister put baby Nathan in is causing some type of problem to Nathan, and they don't have the cure in this time, and they're thinking maybe there's a cure in the future. So Beast fixed Bishop's wristband to head back in the future, but it can only take him and the baby. The rest of them can't come. So Bishop and poor Madeline Pryor has to say goodbye to her baby and sends like a little telepathic goodbye to him. And then Bishop opens up his portal and walks through with baby Nathan crying, and the portal closes, and she just kind of stands there with tears running down her face, overlooking this like firefly lake at night with over the moonlight. Like, oh, it's a beautiful animation, beautifully shot, but man, sad stuff that you're like, bam, poor Nathan just got here and he's already into the future, and now Bishop's gone with him too. And you're like, man, what is this? What is happening? Because I really thought we were going to see like what happens to him when he grows up. Maybe now we will, but we'll see like the future version of him come back, and that will be Cable most likely. But the coolest part of this episode to me was the ending of this, teasing Storm. Storm's at a bar watching the news, and you see her with her giant beautiful mohawk there from the side angle. But a man sits down next to her and goes, it's crazy, isn't it? This heat we're getting, 100 degrees, 102, 100 the next day. What I wouldn't give if someone could just make it rain. And she's like, speak plainly. And he's like, I'm Forge. I can help you. Aurora, Storm, whatever he calls her. And he's like, I can help you get back what was yours. And then she kind of just stares into his eyes like, And that's how the episode ends. So the remaining episodes this season, maybe maybe Storm does get her powers back, which I really hope so, because Storm in the first 2 episodes with that Omega level threat shit, she was super badass. So I'm like, yeah, we need Aurora back being a gangster. And Madeline Pryor then walks off into the sunset herself, so what happens with her? Maybe she'll come back. So people that I want to see come back, Madeline Pryor, even if she doesn't, you know, just know what happens to her. But I want to see Storm back with her powers. I want to see Cable come back around, Baby Nathan there. I want to see what happens to him. I want to know what happens to him and Bishop in the future. The next episode will be called Motendo / Life Death Part 1. So Life Death Part 1 will probably have to do with Storm and getting her powers back, because that's, I believe, a comic book run called Life Death Life Death. And Motendo might be teasing Mojo Man or Mojo Land or whatever his name is. But that guy's a big fat guy from the original series, and he's like almost like a droid, like in a chair, like getting carted around, but he's half machine, half man type deal, and he gets people to fight for his arena for pleasure. I don't know. I have no idea if that will be what the episode is, but that is my prediction. And I think Mr. Sinister might be coming back as the big bad throughout the season. Maybe towards the end it will be all about him and that guy that we saw in the first episode, Gyrick. I don't know, maybe they'll team up or something. But as far as X-Men 97, I'm still giving this episode a 10 out of 10 for me. Like, this whole series has been equally intriguing and beautiful. Like, the animation, like watching the original series when I was a kid and like going back, you know, I almost imagine, like, as I'm watching it, that it looks as good as this show does. But this show just looks so phenomenal. The character design, the costumes, but then the action looks super good. The dialogue seems to be very thought through, because they're dropping like little Easter eggs and little details here and there that are like gonna be important later. Like, I'm into it, man. So comment below, what are your thoughts of X-Men 97 so far? Have you been watching those other things I was talking about at the beginning? Bad Batch Season 4 or whatever it is, the final season of Bad Batch. Have you been watching Shogun and Tokyo Vice? That's what I've been watching this week, and stay tuned. Some more movie reviews coming out to the channel ASAP. So I will see you beautiful people in the next video, and be safe, be well.